Hey everyone, welcome back to Wild About Trial's continuing coverage of the Aaron Hernandez murder trial. I'm once again standing outside of the Fall River Justice Center where the Aaron Hernandez trial is taking place. Yes, I know it's winter, but it is bright outside. With a little bit of sunshine and some gray clouds on the white snow. If you've ever been skiing before, you know how bright it can get out here. But we heard some really interesting testimony today. We heard from a fourth housekeeper, one of the Brazilian maids that helped clean Aaron Hernandez's home on June 18th, the day after Owen Lloyd was shot and killed. She testified that when Hernandez didn't know she was there, she saw him for about 3 to 5 minutes, although not for the entire duration of those minutes, messing around with a security camera on the roof of the basement. Defense attorneys on cross-examination were able to clarify that she didn't find any evidence of tampering, no broken glass or plastic, but the visual would be very alarming for many jurors. We also heard some very interesting testimony this morning from a T-Mobile custodian of records who came in to testify regarding Owen Lloyd's cell phone. We saw text messages sent between Hernandez and Lloyd on the June 16th and early morning June 17th, which we could see them scheduling a meeting. It appears much more like Hernandez is meeting up with Lloyd to buy weed, telling him, I'm going to come by and get that tonight, and then telling him we could step out later. We also saw a series of phone calls from Wallace to Lloyd's phone in the early morning hours of June 17th. The expert was also able to trace the actual timing of the text messages sent from Owen Lloyd to his sister Shaquilla Thibault. The texts line up exactly with what Shaquilla testified to yesterday between 3:07 a.m. and the final communication between Lloyd and anyone else outside of the people he was with at 3:23 a.m. Prosecutors allege he was killed shortly thereafter. In an interesting legal debate, prosecutors have filed a motion asking to allow testimony regarding Alexander Bradley. He is the man who accuses Aaron Hernandez of shooting him outside of a Florida strip club about 4 months prior to when Owen Lloyd was shot and killed. He also says that he was a friend of Hernandez. Prosecutors are alleging that when defense attorneys said in their opening statements that Hernandez would never shoot a friend of his in the face, that they opened the door up to character testimony. Now, these are prior bad acts that are unrelated to the current case. Defense attorneys have vehemently argued that this should not be allowed, and Judge Garsh has previously said that the testimony would not be allowed. In my personal opinion, it would be ridiculous for the judge to allow this kind of testimony in. It is extremely prejudicial to allow any sort of prior bad act testimony to come in. Any evidence of bad character evidence should really only be allowed in under very particular circumstances. And that's usually when you have a defendant on the stand giving actual direct testimony, and he makes a statement regarding his own character, or on direct examination, his attorneys bring out evidence of good character, and then the other side is able to then bring out evidence of bad character to refute those statements. Here, we don't have any direct testimony from Hernandez at all. We don't even have prior convictions. This is just a bald allegation. There haven't even been charges filed in the Alexander Bradley case, at least criminal charges. He has filed a civil lawsuit. So for a judge to allow in evidence of Hernandez shooting somebody else, another person close to him, in this sort of situation, would make it appear that Hernandez is just some sort of a gun-wielding maniac, which would definitely taint the juror's perspective on the case. Judge Garsh has been extremely careful in what evidence she allows and what evidence she precludes. I would find it almost impossible for her to grant the prosecution's motion. Testimony Tuesday concluded with Massachusetts State Trooper and fingerprint analyst specialist. We really broke down how they determine fingerprints, what the technology that's being used, but in essence, we learned a couple of things. There were no fingerprints found on the .22 caliber pistol found in the woods near the crime scene. There were no fingerprints found on the .45 caliber shell casings, both found at the scene and in the dumpster Enterprise rental car. And fingerprints for all 4 men, Carlos Ortiz, Ernest Wallace, Aaron Hernandez, and Owen Lloyd, were found in both the Nissan Altima and the Chrysler that they rented from Enterprise rental car when they returned the mysteriously damaged Altima. We also determined the locations each man sat in the car, Hernandez as the driver, Wallace as the passenger, Owen Lloyd as the rear passenger, and Carlos Ortiz as the rear driver's seat. It's been a pretty compelling testimony so far, but cross-examination started to get heated. We've only just started the cross-examination, but defense attorney Sultan has already heavily critiqued the officer's qualifications. The officer's qualifications are things like he was a Boy Scout, or he was in the Marines, or he lives in the woods. These are all things that the officer has used to validate his understanding of what dirt looks like, specifically the dirt that was found on the .22 caliber pistol. The debate has been raging about whether that's dirt or rust on the pistol, which will help determine how long the pistol was there. When it comes to fingerprint qualifications, though, the officer has testified in numerous cases, including one with this exact same defense attorney, as well as being certified through the Massachusetts State Police and having been experienced and trained for over 13 years. The debate will rage again tomorrow, as we hear will be extremely compelling testimony, at least very interesting testimony, from the prosecution's fingerprint expert. This is Ryan Kearns once again. We'll return at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning for Wild About Trial. We'll see you tomorrow.